Hazel and David had dreamed of a quiet life, far from the chaos of the city. Their newly purchased farmhouse, with its rustic charm and secluded location, seemed like the perfect escape. But some dreams have shadows hidden beneath their surface. One evening, while exploring their new home, Hazel stumbled upon a forgotten attic. In the dim light, her eyes fell on an old chest, adorned with strange carvings. It was locked, but the key lay nearby, as if waiting for her. Hazel inserts the key into the chest, the click echoing in the silent attic. She opens it slowly. Inside, she discovered a porcelain doll, perfectly preserved. Its delicate face, framed by glossy black hair, exuded an eerie lifelikeness. She couldn't help but admire its craftsmanship, unaware of the curse it carried. Hazel places the doll on a shelf in the living room. David glances at it briefly, chuckling. David, playfully. Isn't it a little creepy? Hazel, smiling. It's just a doll, David. To Hazel, the doll was merely an intriguing relic. To David, it was harmless decoration, but neither could sense the malevolent presence awakening within their home. The couple sits down for dinner. Doll is visible in the background. Its head appears slightly tilted, though no one has touched it. That night, the house felt colder than usual. Hazel dismissed it as the chill of the countryside, but the silence seemed heavier. The clock strikes midnight. Hazel awakens to the faint sound of footsteps in the hallway. She nudges David, who groggily waves her off. Determined, she grabs her phone as a flashlight and steps into the hall. The sound grew louder, as though someone was pacing just beyond the living room. But when Hazel looked, the room was empty, except for the doll. The doll is now seated on the kitchen table, its hand resting on a crumpled piece of old paper. Hazel's hand trembles as she picks it up, the paper filled with faded archaic handwriting. Hazel's unease turned to dread. The doll, once merely an object, seemed to move of its own accord, and now it left her a message from the past. Hazel rushes to wake David, clutching the paper. He looks at her skeptically but agrees to examine the doll. The next morning they sit together, trying to decipher the note. The letter told a story of pain and anger. It spoke of a girl named Abigail, her life filled with cruelty and betrayal, her death veiled in mystery. Her spirit, bound to the doll, sought vengeance. Shadows begin to lengthen in the house, and strange noises grow more frequent. The doll is often found in different places, its once lifeless eyes seeming to glimmer with intent. As the days passed, the hauntings became undeniable. The doll's presence was no longer passive. It demanded attention, and with each passing night, its power grew stronger. Hazel sits alone in the living room, staring at the doll, its porcelain lips curling into what looks like the faintest of smiles. What began as curiosity had now become a living nightmare. Hazel and David had brought more than history into their home. They had awakened a curse. Farmhouse, windows are shut tight, and shadows linger in every corner. Hazel sits at the dining table, staring at the crumpled letter. David paces the room, visibly frustrated. The haunting was no longer subtle. The presence of the doll grew stronger, its influence stretching beyond the attic and the halls, creeping into their lives like an unseen force. Hazel holds the letter, her hands shaking. David stands behind her, looking over her shoulder as she reads aloud. They betrayed me, locked me away. No one listened to my cries. This girl, Abigail, she's angry. She's hurt. David, skeptical. Hazel, it's just an old story. Maybe it's someone's idea of a prank. But Hazel couldn't shake the feeling that this was no prank. The words on the page felt alive. as if Abigail's pain seeped through the ink. That night, Hazel wakes suddenly to a loud bang. She sits up, her breathing heavy. Bedroom door slowly creaks open. Hazel reaches out to wake David, but he's already sitting upright, staring at the doorway. David, whispering, "Did you hear that?" The couple ventures into the hallway. A faint giggle echoes, sending chills down their spines. Hazel flips on the light, but the hallway is empty, except for the doll sitting upright against the wall, its face turned toward them. Each movement of the doll, each eerie sound, was a reminder of its growing power. And yet neither Hazel nor David could bring themselves to get rid of it. It felt impossible, as though the doll wouldn't allow it. The next morning, Hazel tries to throw the doll into the garbage bin outside, but when she returns to the house, the doll is back on the living room shelf, as pristine as ever. Hazel, panicking. "David, I just threw it out. It was outside." David, wide-eyed. "Then how is it here?" Hazel collapses onto the couch, trembling. The farmhouse, once a haven, was now a prison, and the doll, its warden. That night, Hazel dreams of Abigail. The vision is vivid, a young girl locked in a dark room, her cries echoing as shadowy figures loom over her. Abigail turns to Hazel, her face twisted in anguish. Abigail, whispering, "Help me, or suffer like I did." Hazel awoke in a cold sweat, her heart pounding. The lines between reality and nightmare were beginning to blur. Hazel and David sit together, their faces pale and drained. The doll sits on the table between them, its lifeless eyes staring. Hazel places a hand on David's arm. Hazel, determined. "We have to end this, whatever it takes." But the question remained, could they? Or would the curse of Abigail consume them both?